What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining in. Going to try to hop right into it because it's going to be probably a thick little message. But basically, just waiting for God to give me the right time. And I know it's not a part of the list that I just had, but the Lord really led me to this. And so basically, it's politics from God's view. And I don't find it funny or ironic that two of the fastest ways to split a room or get people to choose sides is talking about Jesus and talking about politics. But you can't talk about politics without talking about religion or Jesus, if you will, especially here in America. As we know now, the race is down to two: Obama versus Mitt Romney, and I just want to give you God's words on the things and allow you to be an educated and well-versed person in God's word to what He says. Now, this is not me being judgmental. This is me declaring anything. This is me just reading God's word. You make the decision for yourself. Number one. Number two, it's hard to make decisions about what you say you believe in if you don't know God's standpoint on it. So it's better to know God's word. So to start off, to be very clear, Psalm 75 verse 6, for not from the east, nor from the west, nor from the desert comes exaltation, but God is the judge. He puts down one and exalts another. So God's will is going to be done, period. But we have to also understand that God uses men to carry out His will because we're part of His creation. And this also confirms Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good for those who love God and are called according to His purpose. So we are believers of Christ are a part of that, and we have to believe that all things work together for the good. That's good and uncomfortable. Those are good rulers and bad rulers. So knowing that in the greater good is for our best. And again, this is for people who profess to follow Christ, just to know what God's word says on these things. To be basic, God created us in His image and in His likeness. That is what He created us for, and we were created to worship Him and serve Him, period. Okay, so then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Okay, that's Genesis 1:26. Genesis 1:27. God created man in His own image. In the image of God He created him. Male and female He created them. That's also another important topic. God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and rule over it, the fish of the air, fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, and over every living being that moves. So He created us, gave us this world to have responsibility and dominion over. And verse 31, God saw all that He had made, and behold, it was very good. So when He created us, before the fall, everything was good and it had its the right intent. Now, because of sin and us falling and getting away from God, a lot of things have occurred. Once we get to Samuel, 1 Samuel chapter 8, where the children of Israel, who were supposed to be the examples of God and God's children to reveal the world to who God really was, they chose to, instead of standing out, they chose to conform. And because everybody else around them had a king, they wanted to have a king. So they asked the prophet that was over them at the time to ask the Lord to give them a king. And so, First Samuel chapter 8, verse 5. And they said to him, behold, you have grown old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king for us to judge us like all the nations. But the thing was displeasing in the sight of Samuel, and when they said, give us a king to judge us, and Samuel prayed to the Lord. The Lord said to Samuel, listen to the voice of the people in regard to all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them, like all the deeds which they have done since the day that I brought them up from Egypt, even to this day, in that they have forsaken me and served other gods. So they are doing to you also. Now then, listen to their voice. However, you should solemnly warn them and tell them of the procedure of the king who will reign over them. So God begins to warn them and telling them what this really means that they're asking for. They continue on and they agree. Then later on, the king is confirmed, and after the king is confirmed, God says, well, let me be very clear to you guys. and let you know. If you 1 Samuel 12, starting at verse 13. Now therefore, here is the king whom you have chosen, whom you have asked for, and behold, the Lord has set a king over you. If you will fear the Lord and serve him and listen to his voice and not rebel against the command of the Lord, then both you and also the king who reigns over you will follow the Lord your God. If you will not listen to the voice of the Lord, but rebel against the command of the Lord, then the hand of the Lord will be against you, as it was against your fathers. Even now, take your stand and see the great things which the Lord will do before your eyes. So God is saying, make your choice, be very clear. But if you choose to serve this king, as long as you honor me first, as long as you take care of my will, my way, my commands first, I'll honor you. But if you don't, I'm passing judgment on everybody. Now, yes, this is the Old Testament, and one may ask, how does this relate to us? And, we're under the New Testament, the covenant, and all of this. Well, we can go to Romans 13, where Paul is speaking to the Roman church, but it's the New Testament, and he's talking to the church in general. And we go to Romans 13 and see how this is very prevalent in our times as well. How we are to be subject to government and authority. Romans 13, verse 1. Every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. So all authority comes from God, period. Therefore, whoever resists authority has opposed to the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. For it is a minister of God to you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword for nothing. For it is a minister of God, and an avenger of who brings wrath on the one who practices evil. Therefore, it is necessary to be in subjection, not only because of wrath, but also for conscience sake. For because of this, you also pay taxes for rulers and servants of God, devoting themselves to this very thing. So, not only is God saying you got to pay taxes, but he's saying you need to subject yourself to under the authority, because even if they're good or bad, you honoring God and honoring doing what they're saying is being a witness to God. Okay? And so from that's just God's word in the New Testament saying that we need to humble ourselves and subject ourselves to authority. From there, we will go to 1 Peter. Okay? 1 Peter chapter 2, God is saying to honor authority. Okay? 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 13. Submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether to a king as to one in authority, or to governors as sent by him for the punishment of evildoers and the praise of those who do right. For such is the will of God, that by doing right you may silence the ignorance of foolish men. Act as free men, and do not use your freedom as a covering for evil, but use it as a bonds of slave. Honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. Okay? So basically it's saying be submissive, honor the king, and you're going to do this, and it's going to honor God, and it's also you honoring God. He's holy, pure, and righteous, and all the laws are based off of him anyway, so you'll be okay, and you'll prove people wrong. Okay, so now you say, how does that have to do with the state, the national, and the government, and all of this? It's very prevalent because our authority is a democratic system, but basically the president would be the king, if you will. So he's the representative that represents our country and what we stand for as a whole. And so with that, we have two candidates here in Obama and Romney, but if you look at their campaign and if you look at what they stand for, neither one of them stand for God. Period. Romney is a professed Mormon. We can handle that with Galatians chapter 1, where it says that anybody who's preaching anything other than the gospel of Jesus Christ needs to be accursed, and you need to stray away from them immediately. Okay, that's number one. Number two, both of them have either accepted or not definedly and openly corrected the state of this country as its decision to homosexuality, which is clearly against God. You can look at 1 Corinthians 6, Leviticus 20, Jude 1, 1 Timothy 1, Deuteronomy 22, and Leviticus 18. Also, the love of money, The love of money is the root of all evil. You can also go down that route with this country. Everything needs to be Christ-centered. So Acts 4:19 is an example of we are supposed to subject ourselves under the authority that God has over us unless it goes against God's rules and God's laws. Again, I will let you make the decision for yourselves. I will list the scriptures here above on the side, and we'll continue to maybe do another vlog on this to go kind of in detail about the decision making process. So, be blessed.